All right, here. Okay, we live now. But yeah, if you just knew like this just was not on my radar, bro. And but I was like you. I was like, I'm so sick of going on Facebook. And then
Yeah.
when I finally get off, man, it's just like I'm either depressed or I'm angry or I got anxiety,
Oh,
So
yeah.
I
Yeah.
just when I created this, I just found myself always in blended lines. And so I just went out on my regular Facebook page and I was like, hey everybody. I said I created a group. I didn't market it because my boy Steve, Amy's on, Gretchen's on. It's Frank. It's Frank.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Y'all
Uh-oh.
can tell I am so excited about this interview.
Is it Steve I can't see who's on, but is it Steve Coggins?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's my guy, man. We used to work together at Southern Company. And,
okay. What?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, he and I are co-workers now.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait,
so
so
we're gonna keep that. We're gonna keep that on the down low.
We need to talk offline. Man.
Okay. Yes, sir. My God.
Wow, that is crazy, bro.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
he
family.
Yeah, man, for sure. So all right, we got 5 people coming in, so I just want to go ahead and get things started.
Okay.
First of all, good morning, Blended Lines family. I appreciate you all joining the member interview for this week. This is one that I was excited about, as I'm sure other people in the group were. And we got my man Frank Long in the house. Now, most of you all have been in the group some time, but if anybody's new and watching, Frank is the only Black Republican that I've seen in the group. Doesn't mean that there aren't others in the group. But Frank, in the beginning of creating Blended Lines, was the only person that could make me sweat. Because, in the beginning, I was like on some. In the beginning, I was like, we're going to talk about politics and religion, but it's a slippery slope. So I'm going to see how it goes. And then Frank would come in and post something about Trump because he's a Trump supporter. And I'd be sweating. I mean, I'm over here on the other end like, oh, Frank guy, man. But I also felt like, because Frank, let me say this, guys. I really respect this guy. And let me tell you why. I respect Frank. Even though he is a Trump supporter, I am not a Trump supporter. I appreciate and respect Frank because he always comes with points. He backs up what he says. He's very intelligent. And I admire him because he's open-minded and he tries to see your side, but at the same time he's not going to sway away from what his beliefs are if you don't prove a valid point. And I say I have mad respect for that because that means that he knows his worth. He knows what he stands for. And I appreciate that. I'm the same way. I know my worth. I know what I stand for. And unless you come with some damning evidence, it's going to be very difficult to sway me. So with that being said, Frank, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. First, what I always start with is just tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to Blended Lines or how you heard about it.
Okay. Fantastic. Hey, man, look, so let me explain the name because I've been getting a lot of sideline compliment or statements about my name. I'm actually a junior. So my first name is Frank. Well, my dad obviously had dibs on the first name. My middle name is O'Neal. Okay. So Frank O'Neal Long. And then everybody said, well, why do you, and I actually go by Neil. Okay. And everybody kept saying, well, why don't you go by O'Neal? Well, this will tell you something about me. You're in school learning how to write your name. And I was the only kid in the class that had an apostrophe. I had an O apostrophe and then a capital N, right?
Oh, yeah.
The teacher had said, hey, you always start a name with a capital. So I'm sitting there going, well, I got a capital O and I got this little funny thing, and then I got this capital N. So, hey, what does the O stand for?
Mm-hmm.
Man, she got so tired of me asking. She just said, okay, we're just going to call you Neil. Okay. And then it stuck.
Got you, man.
So, you see, hey, started from an early age. But yeah, I mostly go by Neil. No big deal if you call me Frank. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But hey, man, child of the South, born and raised in Atlanta. Been here my whole life. I think it's the absolute best place on the planet. You know, absolutely love my city, love my people, love my Falcons, but don't hold that against me. You know, one day we're gonna get a real football team.
Yeah. Ain't mad at
you. Been you know, worked with a lot of big companies here in the South, particularly here in Atlanta. Some big Fortune 500s. Been with the Federal Reserve Bank, most utility, Atlanta Gas Light, and worked with Southern Company, a Japanese-owned manufacturing facility. And I've been in management. I've been technical. I've been every rung on the ladder, right?
Wow.
So I've seen things from a lot of different perspectives. I've been in corporate boardrooms. I've been in the meetings when major decisions were being made based on the political scene, the economic environment, and all that stuff. So part of what I am is just a guy who has seen things from so many different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, after a while, it all kind of blends. You get this sort of, you know, general view of things as opposed to this myopic, well, I know this narrow part of it, and that's all I worry about. So I've had to worry about it from 360 degrees, man. So I'm also into everything. Hobbies are my hobby. Skydived, motorcycle racing, car racing, photography, archery. I love shooting targets. I'm into accuracy shooting. I love to shoot long distance, 1,000 yards, 1,200 yard shots. Into the shooting sport. I'm a certified firearms instructor, and once I fully retire, that's going to be one of the focuses of my whole outlook, is around training people how to be safe with this tool that gets so much negative publicity that it's just a hammer, dude. And once I train you how to properly use it, all of that other stuff goes away. So I'm in the hot rod cars, got a couple of projects going. You can't name anything that I don't have some kind of interest in, to be honest with you. So
I see.
That's me.
That's awesome, man. Wow, you are very well rounded, which is good, man, because I always tell people, like, if you're well rounded, like for me, you know, I grew up middle class, but my family was in the hood, the ghetto, right?
Okay.
And I leave middle class and go to the hood, and I mean, you and I both know it's like big difference, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But that's a superpower, man, because see, I always say I'm good in every hood, so I can go anywhere and I can walk in the hood and I can I know what to say. I got the slang, I got the jargon, you know what I'm saying? They'll pick up real quick, like, oh, okay, he's straight. And that's a superpower. And so with you, listening to everything what you just said and what all you've been involved with, I think that's a superpower, because it's like you said, it kind of gives you a 360 view.
Absolutely. It's multicultural, right? That's what they call it. Because, hey, man, if you go over, I was born and raised off of Simpson Road, right dead center of downtown Atlanta back in the 70s. That was the hood. Really? That was the predominant hood in all of the state of Georgia, really, you know, because Atlanta is really the only urban scene in the whole state of Georgia. Right. And I had to transition out of that and to go from all black schools to predominantly white schools. I've done, and I've been in all those different arenas, and my nature has always been, hey man, share your story, just like you do with Blended Lines. I'm always like, okay, no, give me how are you coming at me? Give me your whole story, and then I'll give you my story. And that has done so much to break down barriers that, you know, people open up around me, because I'm not coming at them with just my version of things. That's not, let me hear what you got to say. And most of the time, I can even break it down and say, I know why you feel that way. I know what motivates that, right? And then you end up finding out, you know what? Honestly, if I were you, I would be exactly like you are because of the environment that I would have come through would have had me looking at things. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
So, and I just think, and Blended Lines does such a good job of, and it's you, man, it's you. I figured out, I thought long and hard about it because before we went on, I was telling you how I was tempted to do something like this, and I shied away from it. I was like, no, I don't want to deal with all the stress. I don't want to deal with all the negative attitudes. And then I finally thought about it. I said, you know what you do? You get on here and you pump your character into the whole thing. You put your loving nature, your acceptance. You make sure that your mark stays on because you stay active. All the other forums I've been on, the guy running it, you never hear from.
Yeah.
You know, they're out there somewhere and they got these moderators, but you never see them jumping in saying how they want their page or their forum to go. Oh, no. Mr. Jones.
Yeah. Hey,
you got it down pat, man.
Great feedback, man. As you already know, like, I love feedback, whether it's positive or negative. Nothing can hurt my feelings. And the only way that I can get better is through feedback. And I appreciate that, man, because I know they have moderators and stuff, but the goal with this group is to, and I know it sounds crazy, man, but the world needs crazy right now. All right. My goal is to get on a personal level with everybody in Blended Lines. Now I know we're coming up on 1,000, and let's be honest, man, everybody in the group. Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Everybody doesn't contribute like I would like them to. But if they're behind the scenes and they're learning, I don't have an issue with that. You know, now I do have an issue with people, I call them lurkers, where they just sit there and they don't do anything in the group. And as my grandma used to say, waste air. I know that's kind of mean, man, but take up air. And there's really nothing I can do about that right now. But inevitably, I would like for everybody to be contributing in some form or fashion, whatever their gift is, to help bridge this racial gap.
Well,
yeah,
I think they hang around. Lurkers, I'd like to think of them as slow warmers, right? They're slowly building up to that point. But here's the benefit of them. They stay around because they like what they see, right? They're getting something out of this back and forth of the active people. And I like to think that when they do go to the groups where they feel like they can participate or they're comfortable talking, this is the stuff that they talk about. They talk about the uniqueness of this site and what's going on here. Hey, yeah, he got on with a very unpopular viewpoint, but people listen. They let him get his viewpoint out. Nobody attacked him, and some things were shared, and boom, everybody gained from that. So the lurkers, they're doing some work, and I get. You'll be surprised, dude. You'll be surprised how many people text me on the side, you know, saying that, I felt that way, but I don't feel comfortable saying it out loud like that. And I'm just like, wow, okay. So it happens a lot. It happens a lot. So
go ahead, Frank. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That discussion right there that we just had, you gave me a completely different perspective. That's why conversations are so important. All right. You just opened up my mind right there and told me, hey, Cliff, just because they're not talking doesn't mean they're not learning, or you know what I'm saying? Or as you said, kind of slow to welcome or whatnot, you know. And they're
just slow warming. They're easing into it. And I just lost the train of thought. But what the best part? But they wouldn't come back. They wouldn't be checking in if they weren't they're being not entertained, but this is so interesting to them that they can't go away. So that's your indication. Hey, whatever I'm serving up, even though they're not participating, they're biting on it, right? So it's a great thing, man. Great.
Yeah. And somebody else just mentioned, and I'm sorry, I don't know who, it just says Facebook user, but they said, for me, I wanted to see what this group was about and how disagreement was met before I would engage. Perfectly makes sense.
You know, there it is.
Thank you for adding that comment, Facebook user.
Your brand, dude. Your brand and it's a model. I told you this yesterday. Facebook needs to be coming to you, and they need to be tearing you down and analyzing you and figuring out what you did, because everybody here prioritizes being nice and not being insulting and listening. And then, hey, look, and we said this yesterday, if your point is valid, if your point makes sense to you, there is absolutely nothing wrong with stating it matter of factly. You don't have to be attacking. You don't have to call someone else stupid because their idea is different. State
Right.
what you believe. And if that's your core belief, then you can walk away with it intact. Keep it.
Right.
Go live your life based on your core and share it and here's where you're reaching out. You're reaching out for the other people that feel the way you do too. And you're also communicating to those who don't.
Right.
You might change your mind, you might change your heart, or you might not. But honestly, well, everybody needs to get over this idea that what someone else is thinking or feeling matters that much.
Totally.
It really doesn't. Oh my God, it doesn't. I can't tell you how many times in my biggest successes, okay, I'm talking about the times that I won, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it occurred to me that there was somebody in that room who wasn't my fan, who wasn't on my side, who had something against me. And what did it matter in that moment of victory? Nothing. They can take their hard feelings and their disagreement. They can go home with that because in that instance, I was winning. Right. And it had no negative effect on me. So why would if I had spent my time being concerned about that whole time, I would have been wasting energy. So people need to stop doing that. It's okay if somebody doesn't agree. My goodness.
Right.
That's what, man, and that's what I love about this country. When you study the history of what was going on in the minds of the people that came here to set this up, okay? And for the Black people, let me just tell you, yes, I'm taking slavery. I'm gonna put that in a box for now, because that's not what we're really talking about. And it's part of it. Trust me, I understand that, but I'm putting it over here. But what they were trying to do was they were getting away from societies that held them back, held them down under oligarchies or kingships or kingdoms where everything was for the crown, everything was for the elite. And the little people just had to settle. You're not going to get a part of this because that's our history says you don't. Our system says that you were born low, you're going to stay low. Or hey, everything has to come up to the king for the king to decide who gets what. They came over to America with the idea, we're not doing that here. It's going to be about what the individual can accomplish, and the government's got to stay out of that. And if that guy can become the best wood maker or woodworker in the United States and grow and become and own everything that they build, and they came from criminals, you know, their parents could have been anything, or they could have been criminals themselves. Remember, hey, they sent a lot of people from the debtors' prisons and from the prisons from England over here and down to Australia to settle the new country. And those people started from low positions, and because of the American system, they were able to work their way up. Okay, so what I want Black people to realize is that same system benefits you no matter what color, what culture, whatever. Doesn't matter. The system, the theoretical system works. America done a good job, but they haven't done a perfect job of executing it. Okay, so what we need to work on is getting better at executing an excellent system, the best system known to man in the whole history of humankind. We got to get better at using it, which means Black people got to be allowed to plug into it, and they have to be ready to participate and do everything that it takes within that awesome system and make it work for them like it's worked for every other culture in this country, which is why I'm less likely to say, hey, just throw it all out and start over. No, do not start over. It's pretty good. If you just read it, take the color, take the cultures out of it, and just read the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all of that stuff, and just read it. And you'll understand that regardless of who you are, if you perfectly execute that system, man, that thing works like it brought America up to the #1 in the country, in the world, in just 200 years.
Right there, because I'm sorry, man. I'm trying to make sure I get these questions in too, because I already got questions coming in. And somebody, and I have to agree with this. It says Facebook user. That might be Bart. I'm not sure. He said, I could get behind you if the playing field was level. So
that's talking about the execution. Again, we're talking about how it was executed, and we failed miserably. Slavery was the biggest failure that they experienced, was the fact that they excluded us from the best system ever created.
Okay.
And during the most prolific time of advancement, the Industrial Revolution was the most prolific period of advancement in the history of man. And during that time, Blacks weren't allowed to participate. So when the world took the biggest leap forward, we were held back. So that's what damaged us more so than any other enslaved culture in history, if you ask me, was that, oh my God, what if your great-great-great was allowed to start a steel mill? Where would you be today? You would be one of the Carnegies, the Bushes. You would be up in that realm if your great-great-great had been allowed to do that. So yes, we were penalized greatly. Now, the problem is, what that gentleman was pointing out was we still, and I don't want to call it an excuse, I don't want to call it a crutch, but we let it hurt us too much still, okay? Mm-hmm. Say what you will about the problems we're having today, but tell me a period in the past where you can go back and grab a Black person and bring them forward from that period in the past and sit them down today and have them not say, wow, it's so much better now. Mm-hmm. Find me a point in our history where you can go pull a Black person from the history of America and bring them up to 2020 today, and they won't look around and go, wait a minute, y'all have had a Black president. You can own this house. You can start your own business. You can get on social media and do your own thing. You can be Oprah Winfrey. You can be all of these great successes. You can be Neil Long, who is absolutely fantastically happy with how his life has gone as a Black person. You mm-hmm. can't find another point in the history of this country where that would not be the case. So let's admit that some things have gotten a lot better. Some things haven't. Mm-hmm. And if we could just let's not lose ground. I call it losing ground. When you throw all of that good stuff out because there's still some pockets of bad, mm-hmm. you just took us back 5 steps, right?
I see what
we got to let's start operating from our position, the strength that we have. Man, 80% of Black people in this country, they may not be where they want to be, but man, they're doing okay. They're above the poverty line. They're making money. They're doing their thing. They're putting their kids through school. They're clothing their families. They're feeding their families. They may not have all that they want, but by God, they got a lot. And we got to start building on that part, getting that strength built up, as opposed to throwing everything in that 80% away because the 20% is not doing so well.
Gotcha. Now, this isn't about me, man. It's about Blended Lines and the group. Sure. So I'm not going to really talk a whole lot from my perspective. I'll throw it in there if we have time about how I feel about all that. I really want to get to the questions because I know a lot of people have questions for you. Can you see this question up on the screen?
Okay, what has experience been with?
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. But all right, so the question I have is, what has your experience been with racism in predominantly white circles?
I've had the very first job. I wasn't even out of college yet. I was working summers. I wrote a story on this on Blended Lines where the guy I reported to was a self-professed KKK member. I won't give his name, but he didn't make any. He stated out loud, "I'm a member, and I believe in what they believe in." And he was the supervisor over a bunch of Black guys working in the warehouse. Okay. Every day I came to work, it was to him yelling obscenities and all kind of racist stuff to the Black workers in that warehouse. Now, this was down near Old Dixie. I don't know if you know about Atlanta's Old Dixie area. So it was a bunch of Black guys that gave it right back to him. Don't get me wrong. They didn't just sit there and lower their heads. They fired right back with everything they had. So every morning it was just this constant back and forth about racism. And I didn't engage in that. I thought, to me, first of all, I was shocked that it was going on, that it was that overt, just right in my face. And I didn't like it. So I came in, loaded my truck, got my instructions. I left, brought it back. Okay. Jump ahead 2 summers, and I'm about to graduate from Georgia Tech and about to go on and get my career started. I go in, I'm telling everybody, hey, I'm getting ready to graduate. I won't be coming back next summer. Everybody was happy, congratulating me. They were sad to see me go. And before I left, here comes that guy, and he's calling me over to this corner of the room, and he wants to talk to me. And I'm going, oh, Lord, okay, here we go. I avoided this, and now he just got to get his shots in before I leave. I go over, and he pulls me out to a quiet corner. He said, look, I just want to let you know that all that stuff that you heard me saying back there, none of that applied to you.
What?
Okay, all right. I said, okay, please explain. He said, well, you're going to make something of yourself. You're not what I was talking about. You're going to school and and I just want you to know that down the line. I said, man, I almost said his name. I said, look, I said, that stuff you were saying was vile. I said, if that's in your heart, I call that evil. Okay, but my mother raised me to be respectful to my elders. I was here representing my school, so I couldn't do anything to make them look bad. And it just wasn't in my heart to be that kind of person to another human being. So I'm not approving of the stuff that you were saying. And I admit those guys was just as bad coming back at you, but that was foul. But what it showed me, man, was his heart changed. He by seeing me keep my head up and keep my pride and keep myself above it, it showed him something. He all of a sudden had to change his view of black people based on what he saw in me. And I was like, okay, that's powerful. Okay. So
let me
now,
pause you right there, if you don't mind. I mean, if it bothers you to stop you like that, please.
No, go for it. I talk too much, so stop.
You know, with my ADHD is like, if I don't get it out right then, man, it's just gonna come in and it's gonna go poof.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
So in that situation there, this is from Cliff's perspective. It seems like it was racism going on back and forth. You would just come in. It's like you stayed in your lane, right? You stayed in your lane. You came in. You did your job. You dipped.
Well, yeah, only because I saw those guys giving back just as much as he was throwing at them. They weren't victims. You know what I'm saying? They were they came in there armed for bear every day to give him back what he was giving to them. So it was more like a fight for them, more so than him taking racism and beating them down with it.
I got you. Now let me ask you this. Do you or have you at any point in your life felt like you should have said something during that time?
Oh, I did. Well, you mean while they were going back and forth?
Yeah, like while they was going back and forth, like, okay, for example, and this is me, all right?
Yeah.
But this is my personality. I mean, I'm like, again, like I'm crazy. I don't care what people think. If it was me, I would have went to the white guy and pulled him to the side and just been like, look, man, you just can't be spewing out, derogatory statements like that. Then I would have went to my black family and been like, man, don't give him the fuel, you know what I'm saying, to add to you. But that's me. I'm just asking, like, you felt like you should have done that at some point?
I can only give you my perception of the situation, right? So the level of ignorance that it takes to be that kind of person, you hear what I'm saying?
I got
it existed on both sides. So the ignorance from the black side, they were throwing just as much nonsense, racist crap back at him out of anger, out of trying to retaliation, right? But it was just as nonsensical. They would have been just as non-receptive of me sitting there saying, hey man, we all supposed to be here trying to love each other. This is wrong. We need to be sharing. They were not in a position to hear anybody say that, especially a black man. They would have kicked me out of there saying, who do you think you are standing up for, blah, 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 just like he would have. If I had gone in there telling him, who do you think you are?
So either way, you would have got some flack.
Nobody wanted to hear the guy in the middle going, both of you are stupid. Both of you are being so ignorant right now. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody was ready to hear that. I was the college boy, remember?
Oh, were you the only college boy in that group?
Only one in there.
Oh, okay. So if you would have went to the black folks, do you think they would have called you an Uncle Tom?
Bruh, they had it was right there. they had that loaded up so quick. That's all I would have heard. They would have ostracized me. I don't even know if I would have been able still to go there to work because they were so invested in fighting the KKK guy,
right?
The racist guy, that they didn't know how far over the racist line they had traveled in order to fight on his terms. They were fighting on the racist terms.
Okay.
So yeah.
I get that. What about on the white side? How do you think? And I'm sorry, my yard guy's here, so you hear some noise.
I can hear.
What do you think the white guy would have said to you? Like, how would he have looked at you differently if you had said something to him?
He, at the time, I don't know, because his heart, I was, by not engaging like those other guys were doing, he was going through this thing. He must have been going home every day going, man, I cannot figure this Neil cat out, because he don't cuss me. He don't call me these ugly names. He don't get angry. He just comes in, does a great job, and then he goes home And that's the stuff that was changing his heart. Now, and we talked for a long time. I told him, I said, your opinion of black people is all wrong. I told him, I said, you're sitting here complimenting me, and the majority of black people I know are like me.
Right.
You like me. You think I'm this epitome of what a black person should be. And I'm telling you, I learned this from every black person that I came up with. Why do you have this jacked up opinion of black people if you somehow think I'm some example? I'm not an exception to the rule. Right. I'm what raised me. And I think that had a profound effect on him, even though he was in his late 60s at this particular time. So I don't know how much change he was capable of from that point on, but that taught me more than anything about changing people's heart. You can pass whatever law you want to. You can put whatever rule on the book you want to, but until somebody wants to do it in their heart, that's nothing but a bunch of ink on paper, man. It has no meaning.
Right.
So
right.
To me, the fight for racism is happening on blended lines, is happening in cafes, on people's jobs, where they agree to come together and have these discussions and hear each other out, right?
Right.
And get these things blended.
Right.
That's the answer.
Okay, so we got another question from Stephanie Caldwell Coffee. Stephanie Coffee. And she said, and I already know the answer to this. Have you experienced racism within your own race because of your beliefs, being called Uncle Tom, etc.? Yeah, and we just really kind of talked about that.
We talked about it. I need to have Uncle Tom put on my license as part of my name. And people, when I tell them that that's a compliment, they look at me like, man, you really are brainwashed. I said, see, the fact that you called me Uncle Tom tells me, number one, you haven't read the book, okay? And you absolutely do not know the history of who Uncle Tom was. Uncle Tom was the most righteous, virulent, strong, young man who reflected the wrongs of racism back at the white racists, okay? When you read the book, you will find out that they could not break his spirit. He literally let them beat him to death because he would not tell them where he had helped a couple of female slaves escape to freedom. So when you call me Uncle Tom, you're giving me one of the best compliments that you possibly can, because he stood up for black people during the slave times and showed white people how they were not living by the very God that they were preaching to the slaves.
Where do you think that term got misconstrued at then in the black community?
President Lincoln, Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote the book, President Lincoln, this was before the Civil War, like 1861, 62, 63, in that time frame, he actually went to her after the book had come out, and he told her, because of the conscience that you have awoken in this book, we're going to fight a civil war. He gave that book credit for making civil war inevitable to free them. So when people argue that, well, Lincoln didn't really free the slaves out of the goodness of his heart. No, before that war even broke out, that's what was on Lincoln's mind. And there was an economic part of it. There was a keeping the Union together. All of those things were part of it. But one of the key principles, what Lincoln felt brought the whole nation up, consciousness up to a point where they could fight that war over slavery, was due to Harriet Beecher Stowe's book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. So where the misconception came from was, the white people in the South didn't like it. They didn't like it one bit. It made them look horrible. So you had the minstrel shows that traveled around the South doing, kind of shows, and everybody went for entertainment. They forced the minstrel shows to rewrite the book so that Uncle Tom became this old, feeble, self-hating race, self-hating person who just samboed down to massa. Right? To make them feel better about the story, they changed it. Right. And then our own people, then blacks in the early 1900s, the 1910s, 1920s, when the first militant style of fighting against racism came out, they also used the Uncle Tom mischaracterization to call out passive black people. So they took what the white minstrel shows had done, and they used it too to tell the passive, the nonviolent blacks, y'all need to, get up and take arms, and we need to war about this thing. So they sort of projected into the future this misuse of the term Uncle Tom. I encourage everybody to go read that book.
Yeah, see, I haven't read it, bro, and I ain't gonna lie, that's fascinating to me. I mean, I didn't know that. I haven't read the book, but I want to stop right there, man, because I got a lot of questions coming in. So forgive me, Blended Lines, if I don't get everybody's question. We only got an hour. But I do want to go back to our discussion about that guy, and I promise you, we'll get to Trump.
Mhm.
You're just
Sure.
so full of knowledge, man. It's just, I have to pick your brain. It's probably gonna take
Go
multiple.
for it.
So now this person, and the only reason I'm pointing this out because I kind of agree with this. Back to that white boss, that racist boss. They said,
Yeah.
I have to disagree. You didn't puzzle that man. He felt comfortable that you knew your place. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't disagree with that. I think, yeah, he saw a strength in me that honestly I didn't even know I had. All I was doing was going to the safe ground of stay respectful, right? There's no need to be confrontational with somebody that far gone. You'll
Well,
never.
I think that's what they're saying. Like, dude, they're saying that could it be possible he looked at you like a good nigger? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Like
so
that. Like,
okay, well, I was a good employee. I just did my job. It was not my job to fight with him about racism, right? And then the other things I had in the balance as a 19, 20-year-old person was, if I sit here and get into a fight with this guy at this job, I'm messing up Georgia Tech's a connection who got me the job. Georgia Tech didn't know anything about this guy. He was just a first level supervisor. The owner of the company probably didn't even know about it. But here I am. I had pressure on me. Don't mess this up for the other guys who were coming from Georgia Tech's track team. I was on the track team.
yeah.
So I had that pressure on me. I had the fact that in my own self, I said, that doesn't apply to me. Like I always say, one of my favorite comments is, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. So he could sit there and throw the N-word out all he wanted to. That didn't apply to me. I'm not an N.
That's good, Frank. Because I can see what they're saying. I mean, I get it.
I get it.
But what you just said was real, because yeah, sometimes you have to take the higher role so that role can be paid for the rest. You know what I'm saying? If you come off as the angry black guy, because Lord knows we already have that title naturally, I think. It could hurt a lot of people coming forward. And go ahead.
Let me address something else though. And because I know what this guy told me. He said you should have gotten this guy's face and straightened him out. That kind of concept, right? Okay, well, understand something. We talked about this yesterday a little bit. What was his purpose for being that kind of that way towards black people? He was expressing his anger in an attempt to do what exactly? Okay, and I can tell you point blank what it was. Every guy he pushed over that edge, who went too far and retaliating to him, lost their job. Okay. Obviously, he was a supervisor. All he had to do was write them up, go up there, and they were. He had hiring and firing powers, right? So so anybody that went further, if we had EEOC knowledge, I probably would have gone to EEOC and said, "Hey, look, you got a guy out here acting a fool. I ain't know nothing about all that." Okay. But I also understood that part of his game was, if I get these ends hot enough, mad enough, I can show them my ultimate power and get them gone. Them guys needed their job.
So it's back to the basketball analogy we used yesterday, right?
Exactly.
Got your game.
So everything doesn't need to your reaction. Sometimes the best move to make is no reaction at all, because if he's trying to get that anger out of you, he's trying to get you to a point where you're not thinking clearly and you do something stupid, you just fell into his trap. I neutralized him. That man had absolutely no power over me. All I had to do was come there, do my job, get my paycheck, and move on. I was in college. Okay, you see what I'm saying? I was beyond him already, and he started to realize, wait a minute, it ain't nothing I can say to this brother that's going to stop him on his path to success, because he don't bite on these hooks. He don't go after the distractions.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I can relate to that, Frank, because I'm a very passionate person when it comes to what's right and what's wrong, especially when it involves people. All right.
Yeah.
I see color, but I see color, and I think all colors are beautiful because they're different. And I just think, like, what if the world just everybody was the same? Can you imagine how freaking boring that would be, bro? But we got multiple races, multiple cultures, and that's, to me, that's what makes the world beautiful. Now, with that being said, there have been times where I really had to bite my tongue. You know what I'm saying? Because it really was like, okay, they already see me as the black guy, because you know I would tell people, and people would always ask me like, "What is your ethnicity?" And most of the time I said black. Now I just say mixed, and then
Right.
sometimes I make them guess because it was fun. But but I mean, I got about 4 or 5 race cards I can pull out my pocket. But there have been times where I was like, and excuse my French here, but I'm just keeping it real. Like I can act a real nigger right now if I want to,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm not going to give them that power. You know what I'm saying? And
So
I'm not
and
going to stoop to their level.
here's a great example. Another job I had, they brought me in as a management trainee. They brought in 12 people. 8 were put on day shift, 4 were put on night shift. All 8 that went to day shift were white. All 4 that went to nights were black. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Within 6 months, all 8 of the day shift whites had been promoted to full-fledged supervisors. None of the night shift people had been promoted yet, which was part of the program. 6 months, you were supposed to just get trained and move up. None of the 4 nights had been promoted. 8 months later, they sent one of the original 12s from days to nights to supervise the 4 blacks to make sure that they were ready to be promoted. They were supposed to have been peers. They were supposed to be in the same program. And so it became very obvious. Okay, what is going on? And oh yeah, by the way, the majority of the people in that department that work nights were black. Okay. Majority of people that work days were white. Majority. They had some blacks on days also. So the picture became very clear. So I started trying to post out of this area because I began to say, okay, I see the writing on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
They're really not trying to let me go anywhere. So I started trying to post out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Applied for a position somewhere else in the company, didn't even get an interview. Applied for another one, didn't even get an interview. Kept doing it, and I never got an interview. And I'm sitting there looking at my credentials, going, "Hold on a second, man. I got the degree, I got the work experience. What is going on?"
Right.
One day, I'm down in HR doing something else, and this lady that I knew but didn't know pulls me off to the side, says, "Well, look, I know you've been trying to apply out, and don't tell anybody I told you this because I lose my job, but your director comes down here and pulls your application off the pile."
Wow.
Dude, I was devastated. I was up, I literally leaned up against the wall thinking, what's going on? And I said, I already knew what was going on. I had already painted that picture for myself. I already knew. I said, this is about race.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what she did for me. And she was white, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
This is what she did for me. She said, okay, I know about a position that's coming open, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to schedule the interview process on this Monday, because I happen to know that your director is leaving the country that weekend he was literally going to Russia. He said he'll be going and he'll be in Russia for the entire week. I'll get you interviewed on Monday. And if they like you, you'll know by Friday if you got the job. And then by the time he gets back on that next Monday, you'll be gone. Okay. Yeah. And it went just like that, man. Had the interview, knocked him out of their seats, got the job, and I accepted the job on Friday. Next Monday, dude got back in town, called me in his office. Hot. I mean, this dude was white hot, on fire. And he was the kind of cat that would get up on a boardroom table and walk up and down the table, pointing people out and cuss them up, right? He was that kind of firecracker.
Wow.
Man, he starts in on me, and I sit there and I'm just taking it. And then he paused and I said, "Can I tell you something?" And he said, "Go ahead." And I laid out that picture that I painted for you in the beginning of how it looked. He brought them in on the day shift. They were white. They all got promoted. Then we had to wait for their permission to get promoted. I said, now, I'm not saying this was due to race, but what I'm saying is the appearance. And I just left that hanging in the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
He got up, came over, shook my hand, said, "Hey, I wish you well." And that was the end of it. So if I had gone to battle with him over this, I never would have got that opportunity, right? And I know somebody's out there going crazy. "Yeah, but you should have spoke up." And I said, "Yeah, okay, I get that." Now, the problem also, one of the problems in this country is once you file an EEOC complaint, it follows you for the rest of your career. Okay. Unfortunate. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. But ultimately, now here's the kicker, because you ain't heard the rest of the story yet. Years later, I run into that guy. I was running the Peachtree Road Race, and we get on one of the trains together, and there he was standing right in front of me. And I just went, wow, okay, God, what are you trying to tell me with this right here? Right?
Surprise.
But me being me, I grab him, go off to the side. He explained something to me that I did not know.
What's that?
And you can believe this or not, people can believe this or not, but he explained, he said the biggest complaint, a problem that I was having at the company was that the majority of the people who applied for work there were college kids who needed to be off during the day to go to school, or they were single parent mothers who needed to be home during the day with their kids and they worked at night. And their complaint was that they didn't have Black management representation on their shift.
Mm.
And he was like, and you were doing such a great job that you're right. I had every intentions of having you progress on that shift to meet what my other Black employees were asking for.
So was he trying? So is that his way of saying he's grooming you to be the manager?
Yeah. And I didn't know. How was I supposed to know that? Right. And honestly, that's racist. He was making.
Let me ask you this. Do you believe that?
I do. I do, because, and the reason I do is because he's right. The whole time I was on nights trying to get my career started and moved on, all I heard from the people that reported to me was how nice it was to have somebody there in management who could relate to them. That's all they ever said. And I never put it all together, but understand what I'm saying. That was racist. That was racist to make those kind of decisions based on the color of my skin.
Yeah.
But his interpretation of what he needed to fix a racial issue. So everything is complicated like that. There is no straight up
gap. Do you consider that like a communication gap? But
to a degree, because he couldn't directly come to me and say those words. He couldn't come to me and say, hey, the reason I got you here is because you're Black. He couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But so he tried to quietly manage the situation, right?
Right.
And now the problem they had was he never came to nights to assess my progress himself. What he did was sent the best and brightest from the day shift to nights to say, okay, I can't go in there. You go tell me if he's up to par, and if he is, we'll promote him. That he shouldn't have done that. He should have just made the time to come, made the decision himself.
Right.
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 So that lesson taught me right there. Ooh, wow, you can't jump. It was racist. But it wasn't racism. It was prejudice. I don't even know what to call it, because he didn't think I was inferior, genetically inferior. That's racism.
Right.
He didn't think I was genetically inferior. I just was the right guy for that particular application in his mind, where he had his Black employees who wanted to work nights, who wanted Black representation in management.
Well, let me, it's going to have to be a 2-day interview, because I hadn't got one question yet, and we're running out of time. If we don't get to talk, man, I will definitely schedule another one for next week, because that was really my whole basis. But this is a good conversation, man. What we're talking about is just as important, in my opinion. But that leaves me, that's the perfect segue into a question that I have. And I totally see where you're coming from. And the world needs, this is Cliff's complicated.
All right. Okay.
Right? The world needs both a person like you, he'll take the high road. He will do it to pave the way for others behind him. But on the other hand, I feel like the world needs people like me who are vocal and passionate. And if you do something in front of me, I'm going to be like, yo, that was racist as hell. And you don't need to do that. You see what I'm saying? Where is that?
No, you're the first guy besides myself who has come to that conclusion in this way. Let me explain what I'm saying. I don't want all Black people to switch over to the Republican Party. Because we need to work this issue from all angles.
Okay.
There's some great work going on in the Democratic Party and the liberal mindset and the progressive ideology that will benefit Blacks and minorities and everyone. There's also great work coming from the right in the same perspective. Okay. So why don't everybody just stop trying to force everybody on one team and understand there's good to be benefited coming at this problem from all directions. Don't get mad at me for being conservative minded on the conservative theology, on the conservative ideals, because there's a lot in there that benefits our people. I'm not mad at you for being over there fighting for it from that direction, because there's a lot of benefit to come from there. So, hey guys, guess what? The analogy I give is we are not in a tug of war where you're pulling opposite of me. We both have this rope, and the rope is attached to change. And we're just at a little bit different angle from each other. But guess what? I'm right here beside you. I want the exact same thing that y'all want. Okay. My theory, because that's what all this is, it's all theory, dude. Nobody has executed their plan so perfectly that we know that that works. Nobody. So everybody's working on theory. You work your theory, I work mine. But guess which way I'm pulling? I'm pulling for culture, our culture, to be brought up to the prominence that it should have. I want our children to be able to take advantage of the best system ever created, best system of economics and government ever created. And we got to perfect our execution of it. We suck at the execution, but the system is right.
Right.
So that's why I don't get upset. That's why when somebody comes at me with the progressive and the liberal stuff, I go, okay, fight the fight, fight your battle.
Yeah, I agree with that to a certain point. Like when you say, so you're saying the system or what the system intended to do was good, but the execution is the problem. I get that.
Right.
I think what people struggle with that is, how can you execute when you're not even given an opportunity to execute? And I think that's what people are having an issue with, like when they hear that. Now to agree with you, I'm gonna use the perfect analogy. When Jay-Z joined the NFL, all right, the front office, all right,
right,
the Black community was in an uproar, and I'm like, why the hell is everybody mad? Like, this is what you want, because the problem is, until we get to the table, we cannot have a voice until we get to the table. And I told people, I said, what Jay-Z is going to do, he's going to get in there, he's going to get in their ear and be like, look, y'all, you're doing it wrong. You need to be doing this, more black time for the halftime. We need to listen to Kaepernick. And it's not about the flag, it's about police brutality. I mean, at least there was a black voice at the table. That's why I don't have an issue with it.
That was it. That's it in a nutshell. Because honestly, what was, I guess I'm not understanding completely the end game for the people who just want to take the American system and throw it out. They want to, like some people try to call it the white oligarchy, right? Based on the white principles. Okay, that's short-sighted. Just like we are not descendant from slaves. Okay, we are descendant from African, the best Africa had to produce. Okay, slavery was something our people went through. It is not who we are. Okay, so when I say that to mean this, the assimilation argument that they always talk about, white people based their culture on the thousands of years that came before from people of color. Greeks were not white, okay? North African, Egyptians, Sub-Saharans, all of those cultures that designed civilization donated to what white people looked at and went, this is great. This is awesome. We're going to use this too. So it's not about assimilating into white culture. It's about getting our piece of what our ancestors built. When we came up out of Africa and went up through the Mesopotamia and all those cultures that came out, those cultures were based on African knowledge. Every cell and everybody on this earth came up from Africa. White people are your cousin. Okay? So stop all this. You said something earlier. There aren't multiple races. There's only one race of people. There's only one race. The worst thing that the racists convinced everybody of was that race existed. They made everybody believe that there were different races. There's one race. Now, when they made everybody believe that, they actually said, God said so. God says that we're not even and that you're inferior to me. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. We're one race of people. And if everybody would get back to that belief, get back to that understanding that there is no genetic inferiority, superiority complex going on here. We are the same. Okay, now, if you operate your daily life from that concept, white people in black and orange and whatever the hell color you are, if you start conducting your life like that, we start moving closer to fixing this problem, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
yeah, assimilation isn't assimilating into a foreign culture. Now, sure, Christianity wasn't the original religion of Africa. Okay, so we need to go back and relearn some of that stuff, right? And whatever African culture that we did lose, we need to start back bringing that in. That's fine. I got no problem with that. But understand something. The economic system that they utilize in the United States, the system of representative republic, the first republics came out of Rome, who got it from Egypt, who got it from the Greeks, who got it from the Corinthians, who got it from all the way back until that's our culture too. So what I'm saying is get back in the game and start back getting a piece of what is the most prolific economic system on the planet and get involved in a representative republic. And you're going to hear me, I'm never going to call the United States is not a democracy. Okay, we're not. Democracy is nothing but mob rule. When you have a democracy, whoever has the most number of votes wins. We've already learned that it's not a way to conduct government. So what we have here is called a representative republic, which means we look for the most talented and the brightest members of our communities. We elect them as a representative, and we depend on them to make sound, logical decisions based within the constitutional rules. That may not be.
Let me pause right there. So I know you're a Republican. Are you like diehard Republican, or are you one of those people where as long whether it's and I mean, let me just be honest here. Let me say this, okay?
Okay.
I can't stand having to choose between 2 or 3 parties, man. But that's me, all right. But the question I want to ask is, do you only vote Republican, or does it come down to the individual and what he or she believes? Like if it's a Democrat, but it lines up with your values, will you vote Democrat or liberal?
Here's how that works. Politics is a team sport. Okay. And what I mean by that, if I vote Republican on most things, and then I vote Democrat on something, if I go and read that Democrat bill that they're proposing, there are so many anti-conservative components in that bill just for me to get that 2 or 3 pieces that I do like, that they literally cancel each other out. So it's almost like you're either all, or you just, the stuff that you try to go across the aisle for, you're going to lose on it because it's going to counter some of the bigger components that you were trying to get. And it literally happens where this conservative bill, which is, and let me explain what conservative is. Conservatism simply means, most people have it wrong. Conservatism simply means that you can't fix everybody's life from the federal level. The federal Constitution up in Washington, D.C. is very limited in scope and what it allows them to do to help us. It is all about running the country on a large 50,000 foot elevation. The state constitutions are the ones that have the specific details in them that let them help people who are in trouble, help people get their health care, help people get their living quarter. The state constitution. So conservatism simply says we can't be sending all our money up to Washington, D.C., and then who take 70% of it, and then we end up getting 20 to 25% back to try to help people, when we already know if we keep the money in the state, it reverses. Then 70% gets to who you need to get it to, and we only waste 20% of it. So that's what conservatism is. Liberal democracy, if you look at the theology of it, the actual meaning of it, simply means they feel like you need to pool up big bunches of money, send it up to the federal level, have them pump out that regulation to the whole country, and basically try to force an entire country to live by the rules made up by just 500 or 600 people in Congress and the president, right? That's actually not how the country was intended to be. The country was supposed to be 50 different laboratories, 50 states, right? The United States, each state was supposed to try something. Pick something, doesn't matter. We're supposed to have 50 little laboratories trying to figure out the best way to provide healthcare for a bunch of people. Out of those 50, we're going to end up with one that works well, and then the other states will say, hey, that's working. Let's go try that, as opposed to, hey, let's come up with this one big, this stupid system that the government can't even run Social Security. Now we want them to try to run healthcare. They were going to fail. I just know that in my heart. So you're gonna try one big system that when it fails for the entire country. Why don't we try 50 little ones? And if one fails, we've only got one state to repair. And then, oh yeah, 3 or 4 states came up with a real good one. That's spreading like wildfire. That's the good one. Let's go with, that's the difference. So all of this, the race issue that comes into it is kind of nuts, because when you look at the facts, you know me, I go back and I read the details. The Republicans were the party of Lincoln. Everybody agrees, nobody. But at some point, everybody thinks that the party swapped, right? You hear this all the time. Well, they reversed during the 60s. And okay, fine. We have had Civil Rights and Voter Rights Act voted on since 1865. The last one, I think, was 2012. That's recent, right? In every last one of those situations, the Republicans, as a percentage, outvoted the Democrats. So if they flipped, that would not be the case. So when a amendment to, or an adjustment to, or a new Civil or Voter Rights Act amendment comes up, and it's a good thing, the Republicans, as a percentage of the number of Republicans in office, outperform the Democrats. Now, I'm not calling the Democrats racist. That's not what they are. That's not what you're hearing me say. But what I'm saying is that conservative mentality never changed. That was the party of the abolitionists. That was the party of the anti-slavers. Always has been. So you're not going to convince me that in a matter of a few years, all of those people with that sort of family history just decided, okay, yeah, we're going to be racist now. No, it never happened, man.
Well, man, look, we're at 12 o'clock. I got to get one question in, man.
All right.
And look, we're going to reschedule this because, as you and I both said yesterday, there are many, many layers to this.
Yeah.
You know, religion, politics, racism as a whole, you know, the Constitution, law. I mean, it's just all over the place, bro. And it is. My goal for Blended Lines is for us to deep dive and dissect. But as you already know, I can only do that with people who are willing to do so, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But so the last thing, this is the last question, man, I want to ask you. It's a 2-part question.
Okay.
And we got to make it quick. All right. When it comes to Trump, in your opinion, give me something really, really good about Trump and give me something really, really bad about Trump. Go.
The best thing about Trump is he's non-establishment. He did not come from the Republican Party. He did not come from the Democratic Party. Remember, he financed his own campaign up until he was forced to take the dollars from the Republican side. But he's his own man, and I have seen him change his position. On one point, when he first came in, he was supposed to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He was supposed to rip it out by the roots and get rid of it. The Republicans had the House and the Senate, and they had the votes to do it. It was Trump who pumped the brakes and said, well, okay. So his only political maneuver at that point, even though the Republicans were like, no, get that thing out of here, he specifically pointed to the pre-existing care and the extended care for children that he wanted to find a way to keep. His only political option at that point was to put it back on in committee so that it wouldn't get outright voted down if they had brought it to a vote. That was his decision to go against the Republicans to do that. That's why he says he saved pre-existing. That was the only maneuver he had. If he had let that go to vote, Republicans had the votes to get rid of it. Because Republicans want those programs pushed down to the state level. They think the individual states need to be solving this from 50 different directions. That's their reason for trying to get rid of it. And what was the other part of the question? What I don't like about him?
Yeah. What do you
He absolutely
bad about him, I'll say that, or however you want to say it.
He doesn't care what people think of his decision making. Okay. And it gives him the ability to make the hard decision. I understand that, but it's gonna always come off, especially when you got a whole party looking over at every opportunity they can find to make him look bad, and any chance they get. He gives them the opportunity to bring that up to the front when he says, I'm going to do this because I think it's the right thing to do, and I don't care what you think. Okay, that's his attitude.
Yeah.
So But there's been a lot of manipulation of what he says. And we've been pointing out that he never said all Mexicans were rapists and murderers. He said that the rapists and murderers that the Mexicans are sending here, that are crossing over into the United States, we need to do something about them. The legal immigration, the legal immigrants who came over through the system, he has no problem with them. In fact, he invited them, come over to the party. I support you. I will do what I can. You are now citizens. I got you. But we got to do something about MS-13 sending over murderers. We're catching these guys and they're tattooed up with the gang tats. And the first thing they do is get over here and commit crimes. We got to do something about this. They're just walking across the border. And then the media turned that into Trump hates all Mexicans.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I mean, we got to wrap it up. I sure don't want to. I enjoy talking to you, Frank. I really do, man. And just real quick, some comments. One person says, "Is Frank married? Asking for a friend."
Oh, whoa!
Are you married?
Yes. Oh, I am married. It'll be 27 years coming up in September. Oh, that's beautiful woman. Boy, y'all, when I tell you the story it took me to chase her down, man, I'll tell you. I'll be happy to tell you. But yes, I am married. I'm very confident. I'm flattered.
Okay, and another person said, Frank 2020 with Cliff as VP.
Hey, Cliff, you might pass the background check. I won't.
Hey, look, I keep my white privilege card in my pocket, man. It is a joke, but I have experienced it, and that's for a whole nother conversation, bro. But look, man, I didn't get to the hard questions that I wanted to, but I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I like you, and this is what I want everybody in Blended Lines to know. We are a non-judgmental group. All right. And for anybody to get educated, we cannot walk into conversations with the mindset that he's wrong and I'm right. We have to give people a platform and listen to their opinions. And at the end of the day, we agree to disagree. We hug it out. We keep it moving, man. That's one thing, not to sound all like patriotic or whatnot, but I'm sure Frank will appreciate this.
Dude, that's why this is working. That's why this is working. That's got to be rule number one.
Is that, I mean, it's took a while to get here, and I do believe there has been progress. I do believe there's a lot of progress to go, but we do have a voice to where we can have our own opinion without getting killed or murdered, or something like that. I think the worst thing now is that you just piss a lot of people off, but hey, I can deal with that. But
it's not. Look, I'm a happy person, man. I don't do that. I don't do that on purpose.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. I'm passionate, but I'm happy. If that makes sense. But that's why I wanted to have this conversation with Frank. Is to just let everybody know, look, man, just because they think differently or have a different opinion, we can all still love each other and respect each other's opinions. All right, Frank, man, I appreciate you. I'm gonna set another interview up soon. We might can shoot for next week, or the week. Okay. Let me know, because I had a lot of questions from people about, they really want to dig in and get your insight about how you got into the Republican Party and how you grew up. That's what I wanted to do a deep dive in, and we didn't get to it. But I think we got some good wisdom out of this conversation. Would you agree?
Hey, man, I hope. I just share my opinion. I don't give facts. I give my opinion of what I've seen. That's all I got. So, yeah, I think it's been great. Absolutely. Yeah. So
that's what I love about you, bro, is like you don't just shoot from the hip. Like when you post your novel size comments and after I read them, I'm like, man, this dude, he know his stuff, man.
And I'm always looking for people to take that and go do your own research and come back and show me where I missed it. Right. That's what that's about. I put it on paper because now you can go and research it. Right.
Absolutely. Well, look, bro, I appreciate you. I love you. I think you're
too,
man. As a black man, I think you represent us well. I mean, we're taking the politics out of this. I see a intelligent black man, a leader. And
you're too kind.
No, seriously, man. I tell it how it is, and I appreciate that because we get a bad rap, bro. We get a bad rap, And so
Yes,
when
we
I
do.
see other black men out there doing something big, I'm go give the respect because I get tired of hearing that all men are dogs and ain't no good black man. No, that's a lie.
That is the
Us,
bone line.
us
Yeah,
two right here are showing that that's a lie.
and we're the majority.
Right.
We are the majority,
We don't
and
get
we don't get credit.
Yeah. Hey man, well look, I ain't gonna hold you, man, but I appreciate you getting a lot of love over here on the comments, man.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
yeah,
I'll see them later.
don't believe the hype, man. People love you, man. They just probably don't
Okay.
tell you that.
Okay. Okay.
All right, bro. Hey, I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely.
I'm
There
glad
it
you're
is.
and we'll catch up next week, okay?
Will do. Hey,
All
thanks,
right.
man.
All right, take care, man.
All right. Bye.
All right, bye.